Hey folks, this is Matt once again, coming at you with another review. This is for a film that Classic Rocker sent me, and that is The Exterminator. Now, The Exterminator, I know there's a sequel, which is on DVD in a 4-pack, which I'll get one day down the road, and when I get it, I'll review it. It's in a 4-pack with Eye of the Tiger, Gary Busey, Alienator, and Cyclone. I remember seeing The Exterminator 2 when I was a kid. Because you had Mario Van Peebles as a villain, you had, a vigilante with a flamethrower. The Exterminator gets a bit of praise from folks, but to be honest, and here's what the whole thing looks like. I wasn't really a big fan of this film, watching this. I really wasn't, because like I would say, for example, these kind of movies, I think, which I'll review this later, I think this movie was a lot better. So it was like that film was trying to do a film like this, but I thought this film did a lot better. I think some of the Death Wish sequels are better. Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon's better. Man on Fire is better. The Exterminator, my problem with it is the stuff with Robert Ginty, the Exterminator, I think is good. But a lot of times the focus is not on Robert Ginty's character. Instead, just focus on this cop played by Christopher George. And I don't mind Christopher George as an actor. I liked him in a film called Grizzly. Really enjoyed Grizzly. But the thing of it is, his character is not interesting at all, and there's nothing to his character. He's just a cop who goes on dates. That's really what it is. And it if the film's going on one pace, it really sort of derails that pacing, because all of a sudden now you're dealing with this cop, him going on dates with this nurse, and it's like not that interesting. It's not interesting at all. But before I get into that, that's that's sort of my main thing, is that sorry. I wouldn't call this a rant, but at the same time, I can say I'm not a big fan of this movie. The reason I wouldn't say I hate the film is because I like some of the bits with Robert Ginty, but again, I think this is a bit of an overrated film. From what I remember, The Exterminator 2 was at least more entertaining. Again, films like Vigilante I like more than this film. This film, the Robert Ginty parts, and Robert Ginty does a fine job, but again, there are moments where it doesn't concentrate on him, and even then, there's moments that it really feels like it really jumps around, like there's stuff cut out or something like that, which I'll get into. And the ending is very shitty. It's a really shitty, I would say, anticlimactic ending. It just sort of ends, and it's almost like they just ran out of money or ideas, or they just ran out and they just said, fuck it, end it. Okay. And it seems like a very quick, almost out of the blue ending, which again, it's just a really anticlimactic, shitty, unsatisfying ending, so that really hurts the film as well. But yeah, Robert Ginty, I'm getting more into spoilers, folks. Robert Ginty and Steve James, which I like Steve James, they're both in Vietnam, and they're sort of a bit captured. And you have a really good effect where one of their comrades gets his head cut off. It doesn't get completely cut off, because it gets cut off and the head sort of falls back and flops like over here. But it's a really good special effect. I mean, I would say it looks realistic. It's a really good makeup effect, really well done. It's not it's like most of it's decapitated, but then the head sort of goes like this. I thought it was a really well done effect. I thought, wow, it is really bloody effect. And long story short, Steve James, which I liked from American Ninja 1 and 2 and 3, and he was, see, he was in Hero and the Terror, he's actually in a bit role in Vigilante, he's in a bit role in The Soldier, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. He's in a film that I didn't see, but I saw clips of, called Riverbend, that he starred in. And it's really sad that Steve James passed away when he did. It's a real shame. Because I really liked Steve James. But before I get into it, I should mention this is directed by a guy named James Glickenhaus, which directed quite a few films. He directed a film called The Soldier, which Classic Rocker also sent me. I'll review that sometime. Also review, not review, but I know he also did The Protector with Jackie Chan, which I know Jackie Chan wasn't really a fan of because they're trying to make him to be Clint Eastwood, and he's like, I'm not like that. I actually have the version that has both versions, the Hong Kong version, the American version. Shakedown, I believe James Glickenhaus did Shakedown. I still think Shakedown is his best movie with Peter Weller and Sam Elliott. I definitely think Shakedown is James Glickenhaus' best film. And I would say even The Soldier I like better than this film. The Soldier has its problems, but again, I would say I like that film better than this. Sad to say, I'd probably say I even like Jackie Chan's Protector better than this. At least the Hong Kong version that Jackie Chan took and added some little bit different scenes in. This one was just, again, it's not a rant, but it wasn't really that satisfying of a watch. I mean, it's cool, Steve James gets loose and he, gets a machine gun, fucks some shit up, saves Robert Ginty to get out of Vietnam. That is pretty much back in the States, and Steve James working this job, has a family. Robert Ginty goes over to see how he's doing. Steve James says, hey, take this stuff and roll it over to here, and Robert Ginty does it. And then there's some thieves, and he pretty much gets robbed, and Steve James comes in and kicks their ass, helps them out again. But then, unfortunately, because of that, Steve James gets beaten up, gets put up face down, and someone takes like this hook-like thing and digs it right to Steve James' back, and then later to find out that Steve James' character is paralyzed. Robert Ginty doesn't like that, so he wants to get revenge, and he becomes the Exterminator. And that's pretty much the film. He becomes the Exterminator, but then a lot of good chunks are pushed in with this cop, which I'll get into. But this is what I'm talking about, where it seems like the film really jumps around as if there's stuff cut out. Just like there's one scene where Robert Ginty's talking to, I think it's like Steve James' wife. And automatically it cuts to Robert Ginty has a guy tied up, and then he has a flamethrower that he's scaring him. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, how the hell did he find this guy? How the hell did he know this guy did, like, how did he know where this guy was? How the hell did he find out? Like, all of a sudden he has this guy tied up and threatened him with a flamethrower. And I'm like, it's like, it was a really almost out of the blue cut. I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, how the hell did this happen? How the hell did it get to this place? That's what I mean. It feels like there's something missing, like him finding out who this guy is and how he captured this guy. But no, pretty much scares him, and the guy talks, so he goes up, and there's a couple guys here, tells the women to leave. And even this scene wasn't really that satisfying. Maybe this is going to be more of a rant. I think this is going to be more of a rant. Fuck it, it's a rant. I know it's like 10 minutes in. This is a rant. Even though... Because the more I think about it, the more it's like, okay, it has got a couple good parts with Robert Ginty, but this movie's fucking overrated, and I don't understand the big praise it gets. I haven't seen Exterminator 2 in a while, but I remember that being a better movie. Vigilante's a better movie. Death Wish 2, 3, and 4 are better movies than this. Man on Fire's a better movie. This movie is not that great. Because the more I think about it now, even when he, the guys who fucked up Steve James, it's really lame. Okay, there's a guy coming, he shoots, he's like an M16, but like he ties these two guys down, and then he has like a gun on them, and then it cuts to a little flashback in Vietnam where he had to shoot a guy, and then he leaves, and I'm like, okay, did he shoot these two guys who fucked up Steve James, who he tied down and muffled their mouths? Did he shoot them? Did he not shoot them? I guess he shot them. Because cops later on, like, one is still alive, but they mention, oh yeah, rats ate his face. You don't see it, but I mean, these are the guys who fucked up Steve James, and I have to think for fucking full 10 seconds if he shot these guys or not. I'm like, well, why did he tie these guys and muffle them if he was just going to shoot them? I'm like, why didn't we see him shoot them and get that sort of... It's almost like a cutaway. It was a cutaway to a flashback. It's not satisfying. It's not even that violent, hardcore. I mean, for a film that's called The Exterminator, that's supposed to be, a grindhouse type of movie, and it's like, what the hell is this shit? Again, this is probably not even probably, this is the first time I saw the film, at least all the way through, and I'm like, that's really fucking lame. This is a really fucking lame ass shit. It is. And then it cuts to Christopher George. If you're wondering, I wrote a couple notes so I wouldn't forget some stuff. Christopher George is this cop who gets this hooker and talks to her. And Christopher George's character is not interesting at all, because all you know is that he's a horny bastard because he, has this nurse that's kind of doctor nurse who's kind of his girlfriend, and he talks to her and goes on a couple dates with her throughout the fucking movie. And then somehow out of the blue finds out Robert Ginty's the fucking exterminator, and then they both meet at the end. I'll just fucking skip to the ending, and it's a shitty ending where Robert Ginty gives him the gun. Christopher George gets shot because these fucking CIA guys, which is really a really stupid thing they put in there, which was fucking dumb and useless. You didn't need to bring the CIA into this fucking movie. It's not a fucking Steven Seagal film. And fucking Christopher George tells him to go. Robert Ginty's going over this thing. He gets shot, falls to the water. Christopher George gets shot and killed. CIA's like, yeah, we got them. The situation's secured. I'm like, you just murdered a cop. And then Robert Ginty is in the water and he gets washed by the Statue of Liberty, and he had, I guess, a flat jacket, and the movie fucking ends with a shitty song. And that's how the movie ends. And I'm like, it's a shitty ending. So this is a fucking rant. There's only a couple scenes I enjoyed. I enjoyed seeing Steve James in there, and I liked Robert Ginty. But there's only a couple of interesting scenes for Robert Ginty. Again, the Robert Ginty stuff was the better stuff. Where he kidnaps this mob boss type of guy, has him hung over a meat grinder. He wants to give money for Steve James' family to support them. So he's like, hey, what's the combination do you say? If you better tell me everything that's there, otherwise I'll come back. He actually says, I'll be back. And the mob boss tells him a couple things, but when Robert Ginty gets there, the mob boss didn't tell him that he had an attack dog. And Robert Ginty has to kill the dog. But even that scene, I don't see him actually get into the safe and take the money. So again, I had to think for like 30 seconds. Did Robert Ginty leave without getting the money? Did he get the money? Did he just... Was the safe not there? Where did he lie about the safe as well as about not mentioning the dog? I don't know. I mean, that's what I mean. That he jumps around. But I like the idea that he lowers the guy down and into a meat grinder, and then you see like the result. It looks like hamburger meat. I guess, what else is it supposed to look like? Okay, interesting scene. Another one where he's making these bullets. I don't know if they're dum-dum bullets or whatever, but he's making these bullets, and then he puts like a little bit of poison in them. I don't know why the fuck he does this, because he only shoots one guy and it's in the gut. And I guess the poison did something for that, or is that part of making these kind of bullets, or dum-dum bullets, or whatever the hell they're called? I don't know what the hell they're called. But he's like, it was interesting seeing him actually make it. He didn't really use it that much, though. And he fucks up these guys who they have this place where they, like, how do I explain it? Robert Ginty, a hooker, proposed to him, and they went up, and he saw that she had all these burn marks, and she talks about what happened, how these assholes burned her, and these people who run this business, and a lot of times they get little boys. So that's when Robert Ginty makes those bullets, and he goes in, and I like this scene where he goes in, fucks this guy up, ties him up, burns him alive, and then he goes into this other fat asshole and, you know, shoots him in the gut, helps the, looks like a teenage boy, which is fine. I don't need to be creeped out by seeing a little boy going through this. But he helps the guy out and gets him out of there. Okay, I like that little scene as well. But then it cuts to fucking Christopher George going on a date with this fucking nurse. And I'm like, there's nothing to Christopher George's character. There's really nothing to his character. Or George dealing with these CIA assholes. And why the fuck the CIA is getting involved with a vigilante case, I have no fucking idea. Just, I'm sure they explain it. I don't give a fuck. To me, it was an aspect that wasn't that interesting, wasn't entertaining, and didn't need to be in there. And really, he doesn't really do a whole lot of vigilante stuff. I mean, when he gets the guys who fucked up Steve James, it's really unsatisfying. And really, the moments I could think of is, like I said, with the mob boss guy over the meat grinder. Like I said, that scene where, you know, he burns the one guy and shoots the other guy in the gut. And then there's these assholes who assaulted this old woman, and Robert Ginty chases after them and shoots them in their car, and the car flips over and such. Really, those three scenes are the three scenes I'm talking about that I liked, and Robert Ginty. Steve James wants to be off life support, and Robert Ginty does that. At the same time, Christopher George is there with the nurse again. I mean, that's like his whole fucking character, going on dates with this nurse and getting the nurse's pants. Maybe that's why Christopher George took the job. And so when he dies at the end, it's like, okay, what the fuck was the point of his character? It was because how he finds out is really, he's at the hospital. Robert Ginty tells him, hey, your fly's open, and Christopher George zips himself up, sees that someone got on life support, and asks the nurse, is that blah 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 Steve James' character's name? And she's like, yes. I think I just saw the Exterminator. I mean, how did he put two and two together? Because some guy died, he assumes that Robert Ginty's the Exterminator? And they've never met before, and he's never seen Robert Ginty before. This is the first time, and I'm like, the movie is like really going out on a limb to like bullshit conclusions. It's like, well, the movie has about this many minutes left, and he's got to figure out that Robert Ginty's the Exterminator sometime, so they just happen to be there at the same time, and he sees Robert Ginty, and he assumes, oh, he's the Exterminator. And pretty much they hide out his Robert Ginty's apartment. Robert Ginty gives a phone call to Christopher George, and that's where you get that bullshit, stupid ending. Robert Ginty shoots at Christopher George, gives a little explanation, You know, he said a line. What was it? About feeling like a victim. Gives Christopher George his gun. Then again, Christopher George gets shot by these CIA guys who are killing a fucking cop. And a cop who was going to take Robert Ginty in, obviously, if Robert Ginty gave the fucking gun up. So I'm like, this vigilante just gave his gun up. Here's a cop who's going to take him in. If that was like... Now, if it was like a mob boss guy who wanted retribution, they really didn't pan that out in the script well. Because they have these CIA guys. I mean, why the fuck is CIA? And it's really anticlimactic. I mean, think about it. Your lead guy, he gets shot, falls in the water, gets washed up. And, like, this is like the beginning of the third act. Where you believe your hero or your anti-hero is dead, and that's when he gears up and gets revenge. This is like the start of your third act, not the end of your fucking movie. So yeah, this is a fucking rant, because the more I think about it, the more I don't like this movie, the more I would never see this film again. Otherwise, I fast forward to the Robert Ginty. I thought he gave a pretty decent performance. Good effect at the beginning in Vietnam with the head getting cut off. And those three scenes I mentioned with Robert Ginty. The meat grinder scene, fuck up the guys at the place called the Chicken Place, that scene, and fuck up the guys who assaulted that old lady. Those three sequences. Because a lot of focus just put on Christopher George, and his character is ultimately useless because he's not much of an investigator, because he's doing most of the time just trying to get in a female doc's, this nurse's pants, going on dates with her, which ultimately leads to nowhere, because you're building up that he is in love with this girl. He's just going to die at the end, get shot. And the anti-hero gets shot, falls into the water, and gets washed up, and I'm like, I guess that's cool? Supposed to be? This film, yeah. It had a shitty ending. The pacing wasn't all that. The stuff with Christopher George, honestly, you could have just taken all that shit out. You could have taken all the scenes with Christopher George out, and you could have had more scenes of Robert Ginty, how he is at home, how he's dealing with his life when he's not being the Exterminator. I mean, even him becoming the Exterminator almost seems like an out of the blue. He sent a letter, okay, I'm the Exterminator now. I mean, you could have showed scenes of him building up to that. I mean, the film should have just been completely focused on Robert Ginty's character. Instead, it's like, okay, have him do a little bit of this vigilante stuff, then cut back to Christopher George, and then this CIA bullshit, CIAs who want this guy taken out for some fucking reason. I forget what the hell the reason they said was, because I thought it was stupid. And that's another thing is Steve James. He dies in a lot of movies. He gets killed in this film. He gets killed in Hero and the Terror. He kind of gets killed in I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Think he does. At least kinda. Hero and the Terror he does. Vigilante he does. It's like, damn, Steve James dies in a lot of movies. Not all, but a lot. But yeah, this film, other than Robert Ginty in a couple scenes, I find this film overrated. And it's not even that violent of a movie. It's not as violent as the title and its reputation makes it seem like. I mean, a guy just put in the meat grinder, but when the stuff comes out, it does look like hamburger meat, so it didn't... I don't know. I just didn't gross me out as probably did people back in the day. The head getting cut off was cool. Couple decent, gunshots, but that's pretty much it. That's really pretty much it. It's really not as violent as Reputation says. I mean, other than those scenes I mentioned. The music, I didn't like the songs that was used at the beginning and end of the movie. The opening and ending credits, I didn't like the song. It sounds similar to the song that James Glickenhaus would use at the end with The Protector. And with that Jackie Chan film, I just didn't care for that song. Didn't care for it at all. There's a lot of things I didn't care for. And I think that's why this is ultimately a rant, because at the end of the day, there's better Vigilante films. I think this film is a bit overrated. And I don't see the bit... Robert Ginty and the couple stuff he does, other than that, what's the big deal with this movie? What's the big love for this movie? Hell, the Exterminator 2, he gets to fuck people up with a flamethrower. And from what I remember, that felt more like a little bit of a Robert Ginty's movie. And, again, Vigilante was a better movie. Death Wish, all the Death Wish films. Well, I don't know about Death Wish 5. But even the first Death Wish film is better than this movie. It just, not that satisfying of a movie, this film. It really isn't. That's just my opinion. Again, I remember Exterminator 2 being better. Man on Fire is better. I haven't seen the original Man on Fire because I know that was a remake. Again, this film was better. James Glickenhaus, Shakedown, I think is his best film. I think The Soldier, it has its problems, but it's a better movie than this. So yeah, The Exterminator, it wasn't going to be a rant, but it ended up being a rant. Not much of a yelling rant, but more of a frustrated, feeling this film's overrated type of rant. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, I thought it was a pretty lame film, to be perfectly honest. Other than a couple of the Robert Ginty parts. But yeah, the Christopher George, his whole subplot was nothing to his character. Boring. The CIA shit didn't need to be in there. The ending, horrendous, anticlimactic ending. Stuff that gets, like, cut, that I'm like, was there more stuff filmed? Or this seems like you have this and this, but this got cut out. Like, and then leaps of faith like Christopher George. Oh yeah, he's the Exterminator. I'm like, what? And it is. Even violence-wise, it wasn't as violent as its reputation says, in my opinion. But anyway, has a couple of decent parts, but overall, can't say I'm a fan of the movie. Didn't hate every single part of it, but overall, not a great movie, in my opinion. I think it's a bit overrated. I said that like 5 times now. But either way, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you later.